Tonight, Star Trek Discovery had, it had a lot. It had a little bit of everything. It had some, and some, oh no, you didn't, and oh yes, she did. So we have so much to cover, I can't even finish this open because Star Trek Discovery starts now.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Welcome to the Star Trek Discovery After Show. That's right, there's none other. This is the only one. I'm Christian Bladt, joined, as always, except for last week, by...
Flobo boys, thanks so much. I'm back and returned. I am in one piece.
And joined, as usual, except for the week of the third episode, which was terrible, by Frank Moran.
That's right, but me and my Klingon baby head are back once again.
We should have people make you one. So you keep right there.
Just a little baby.
Oh, yeah, before the end of the season, let's have a little Klingon baby head right here.
Yay.
And hi to everyone in the chat. They're so happy because Flobo's back this week. They did. I don't think I did half the job manning the chat that Flobo does. So if you're watching live on YouTube, please interact with Flobo and vote Flobo.
Yeah, I actually run a neighborhood council.
Yeah, so if you live in Palms in the LA
Palms,
area,
Los Angeles.
vote Flobo.
Yeah, Stretch for you, K, Beta Artemis. How you guys doing? And all of you guys lurking in the chat. This is going to be a fun episode. Fun!
Yeah, there really was so much that happened where I kept thinking like, all right, it's probably over now, you know, and especially like the whole last scene, and you know, we'll get into it. But I just figured, you know, there's a certain point where I'm like, okay, well, that's going to happen next week. They're going to just leave us hanging. And it's like, no, here's like another like 9 minutes of stuff that you have to wait through. So I thought this is one of the most exciting episodes of the series. And also, I would say the one that had kind of the biggest surprise. Overall, and we'll break down all the specifics, but overall, what do you think of this episode, Flobo?
Definitely was a roller coaster ride. I thought, wow, they're telling me up front Michael's a Red Angel. Okay, I'm rolling with it. But it wasn't. And then we definitely had some stuff from last week with Airiam's funeral and some interaction between some new characters. And we got to a little more about Leland's like backstory. So, I mean, as an episode, I got a lot to work with, and I appreciated it.
Speaking of Airiam's funeral, Frank, of course, it was very reminiscent of the most memorable funeral in Starfleet history, at least in terms of anything we've seen in the movies. It was very reminiscent of Spock's funeral in Wrath of Khan. The only thing missing was Scotty playing the bagpipes, right?
Do you think Spock, after that, he wrote that down? He's like, when I go, I want to be put...
Yeah, he's like, but bagpipes were definitely missing.
That's true.
So I'm going to make sure that we get those in there.
In case me that photon torpedo fired me away.
It was interesting because we spent so much time last week on this show talking about how we didn't really know Airiam, and they managed to make it feel, make us feel that sense of loss, and then they were just like, just in case we didn't get you last week, we're going right back in, and. What did you think of the episode overall, Frank?
I know we'd talked about a few episodes ago, the one that was only about 45, 46 minutes there.
I think it was 40, actually.
Yeah. And it felt like, boy, there was more you could have done in that episode. Yeah. And this one, I thought, even though it was 46/48 with the commercials, I was impressed with the amount they were able to pack into it. Despite the whole Airiam thing at the beginning, it was just... a lot of time spent on a character that I wanted to care more about, but I didn't. And so I felt like those attempts just didn't hit as hard as I felt like they wanted them to.
I thought that far more effective than that was sort of the pall hanging over the bridge when her replacement, Lieutenant Nelson, takes her position. Everybody's like...
Oh, yeah.
Right, somebody's going to have to stand there, aren't they?
Yeah.
And she even sort of acknowledges, like, yep, this is weird.
I'm sorry. When you see, like, Demers talking about, like, her augmentation. Conversations that would have been great to ever have, just even a snippet of before in any previous episode, just to at least have us, like, oh, yeah.
These are probably all things that get cut out of earlier episodes, and they're like, well, we got to use them now. But I thought it was nice that everybody went through it. And by the way... Shout out to Doug Jones, who did confirm on Twitter that was him singing Lieutenant Saru.
I was going to answer that question. Like, I know you said earlier episodes having such modern songs takes you out of it.
Yeah.
This was like a traditional one?
Well, I was glad that, I was glad that he did that and he didn't sing like Ground Control and Major Tom. Space Oddity, of course.
At a funeral? Oh my gosh.
Maybe it was Airiam's favorite song.
Right.
You don't know. You don't know,
Exactly.
because it wouldn't have possibly been anything from the 22nd century.
Right.
None of those are our favorite.
Fuck, going to get you.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I thought it was nicely done, but I was like, no, you're not going to make me feel twice. You made me feel for this character one time and one time only. But I thought it's nice. I've read a couple of summaries of the episode since I watched it, as I usually do, and I think it was either Vulture or Den of Geek. One of them was talking about how this episode highlighted the importance of family, how the crew really is your family. And then, of course, we'll talk about literal family in a moment. But I thought you really see that from the having the funeral in there. You know, it's giving them the time to grieve. And I don't know. And I think the whole thing, it was sort of interesting because we had a shot of Dr. Colbert like, yeah, I don't feel anything for anything. Like I don't know what I'm supposed to feel about anything, and I thought that it was a nice touch.
But it felt weird to spend so much time on a character we knew so little about.
Airiam Colbert.
On Airiam.
Okay.
Airiam.
No, Colbert we know fairly well.
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
We got to watch him get murdered.
Yes, but for all the great eulogizing for that. Just all of us like, boy, if it was somebody that we cared for on, to go back to Wrath of Khan, for the Spock. You've watched him on, 3 seasons of the series, the animated series, novels, the first film, and then this. A character that you've grown and loved and are truly devastated to see lost. To this, you're like, okay, we spent a lot of time, we saw a little bit of her, but it's just like, it's hard to really get, I want to feel that emotion, and yet I just can't.
Would you have been angry if Captain Pike had said about Airiam, of all the souls I've known before, hers was the most human?
Human.
Yeah. Because I think if J.J. Abrams had directed this episode, that's what he would have done, because, they like to repurpose dialogue from, from Wrath of Khan in particular, actually, not just from anything.
Would have gone over then to Spock to be, fighting back the tears?
Yes,
Yes,
I
of
think
course.
it would have had to.
Yes.
Anyway, let us know in the chat. Are we just heartless? People were angry at us in the comments last week that people were moved and they were just like, they didn't like what we focused on in the episode. Sometimes there are people who comment in the chat where I can't quite figure out what they dislike more. Do they like Discovery less than they like us?
Right.
Or do they, which one do you hate more? So let us know if you're watching.
I don't know about you guys, but this chat's the best chat ever. I mean, you guys were talking about
'cause they-
giving you a model baby head for you, Frank.
Because they like
gonna get
you.
one.
You love the chat because they're hashtag Team Flobo. Lots to deal with, and obviously, as is so often the case with the show, this was a Burnham-heavy episode, and I think I want to actually start with her interaction with Spock because of the fact that he very succinctly points out, so here's all the things that have happened to you today, and the realization, at least at the time, the understanding that you're the time-traveling future version of you is something we're trying to catch to preserve the life, all life, and then also finding out, who was, the Section 31's involvement in your parents' death, and taking out her frustrations on. I mean, that's a superior officer, but I think he knew he had it coming, don't you think, Flobo?
Yeah, taking a step back about Michael, I know a lot of people give the character flack for being too overpowered or being too in your face sometimes, but this episode she got put through the ringer. I mean, Spock told her about herself. She learned about her parents, and then she volunteered eventually to be part of the thing you'll talk about later. So seeing that progression and even her relationship with Spock, I said, great. It's refreshing to find someone to go match with her wit to wit to say, okay, you're not perfect, you're not that headstrong. These are some flaws you can work on. So.
Yeah, and you know, just a few scenes earlier in the episode, he had pointed out a series of her shortcomings, and I thought that was a nice interaction of thanks for that. What did you think of the scene with Burnham and Spock, Frank? Because obviously one of the things that you know, you and I have been most critical about this show through these 2 seasons is the fact that we need to just take at face value that this woman is his half sister and grew up with him at least for a time. For me, it was the first time that I felt any kind of connection that, okay, well, maybe I'm just now starting to be at peace with it. What did you think?
I agree. Just taking it in that particular scene and in the context of that, I thought it worked well for that. I was like, all right, I enjoyed their exchanges and the dynamics that are at play between them in the scene. So I was like, all right, yeah, that was nice. I would go for that. I can put my continuity issues aside and just enjoy that scene.
Yeah, I think, and I also liked, you know, when she's just beating the hell out of the dummy in the, I don't know, whatever kind of training room that is. I'd call it the danger room, but that's the wrong universe. Thank you. But I thought it was just like, you know, you're the last person I want to talk to right now. And I liked the character moment from Spock where he's just like, yeah, I wasn't expecting to have this either, but I too have found it helpful, which is like, oh my God, you know, that's Spock like gushing basically, at least this incarnation of Spock. So I thought it was a nice touch.
It felt similar, that scene, compared to the early flashbacks that we saw of their relationship on Vulcan. Felt more of a piece together, and then sandwiched in between, or the bread of the sandwich of those earlier scenes with Burnham and Spock there were much more contentious. So it made it hard to realize, like, I don't understand why there's so much hate, because there seemed to be a very loving thing here at the beginning. So to see them come around to get back to this point, it's like, all right, I can see the connectors between the childhood and to that scene and see the roots of it.
Yeah, and obviously, you know, her childhood memories, which we saw sort of her perspective of the flashback. I think it was last week, maybe it was a couple weeks ago. But, you know, just obviously, you know, Leland needed a couple of punches for it. But I found it to be interesting because obviously we know, because Giorgio told us, that, you know, he was responsible for their deaths. But we certainly didn't understand what the role was. I didn't think that he had killed them, you know, but I was interested to kind of find out what that was. And, you know, to Flobo's point about Burnham going through the ringer, I mean, so she goes from that right up to Tyler, who she yells at, and then, you know, she has her moment with Spock. So there's and that's only in a few minutes of the episode that all that happens to her. So, yeah, she worked through some stuff this week, and we haven't even talked about the end, you know, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
Yeah, I would be curious in terms of just the writers' room planning out the first season of this, that you know, Burnham's parents and, you know, their death, was that something that they always felt like would have more significance even in season 1, and they seeded it then, or it was just like, yeah, let's not really give anything specific in case we can use it. And then the second season writers and the writers' room was like, yeah, why don't we go back and do something with that? I'm just curious to see how
yeah,
much
actually, that would be fascinating to try and find that out. And, you know, if I get a chance to ask the writers a question, maybe I will. For those of you who live in Los Angeles, this is a free plug for the Paley Fest on Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. here in Los Angeles. There will be a panel for Star Trek Discovery and the new Twilight Zone, both that'll be on CBS All Access. And my understanding, tickets still available. So if you do live locally or close enough, or maybe you'll find yourself here on Sunday, check that out. I'll be going. So well, I was going to say I'll report back next week, except I won't be here. So I'll report back. Flobo and Frank will be here next week, but I'll let you know about it one of these days. Anyway, let's talk more.
Don't keep us in suspense.
Yeah, exactly. I'll get to you eventually.
Oh, by the way, well, you know, we'll talk about that later in the episode. All right, so let's talk about, sort of hatching this plan for Burnham. It's interesting because they do everyone takes at face value that one, the Red Angel is a her, and two, that it is indeed her, that it's Burnham. I mean, even Spock is like, well, yeah, that's all right. That seems to be what it is. I did not foresee that twist, and I like being surprised. I don't get surprised by a lot of things, and so I'm always glad when something is a legitimate surprise. Frank, were you surprised by that realization? Like, I wasn't surprised that it wasn't actually Burnham, because I thought that could have happened, but I didn't think it was going to be her mother.
Yeah, especially after Culber does the bioscans. And I am curious because I would think a mother and a daughter shouldn't have identical.
Not that similar, no.
Yeah, I thought there would be some more variance in there. So interesting to see how those two.
I mean, unless she reproduced with a transgender clone of herself, I would think that the DNA would be. Well, I just tried to come up with a reason why your child's DNA would be the same.
Right.
So if you clone yourself as a woman and then you switch it, because they can do that.
You thought this out really thoroughly.
No, just as I was talking.
Okay.
Yeah. So let us know in the chat if you're interested in that sort of thing. But anyway, so I was legitimately surprised.
Yeah, I thought it was a nice twist where it's like, all right, they kind of setting you up for one thing, and if it had been just a Burnham with longer hair that had come back from some point in the future, I would have been like, all right, because now we're still kind of curious about why she's coming back. But the mother revelation was kind of explained a little more.
My theory was Mirror Universe Burnham. That's actually what I thought it was going to be, because when we went to the Mirror Universe last season, that Burnham was missing, presumed dead, but there was no proof that she was dead.
Right.
So I was like, okay. I'm pretty sure that this is where it would turn up. And when we get the reveal, I'm so glad she said mom, because I'm like, who's that?
That's true. Yeah.
Who are we looking at?
I almost wanted, like, if Burnham said, who are you? If she would have said that, I would have even been fine with that, because I was like, or maybe we find out in the next episode it's her daughter or something.
Right.
Maybe. I don't know. But
yeah, I mean, I think not actually revealing would be good. But so, Flobo, were you surprised? What did you think about that reveal?
Yeah, it had to have been something else, because it was established way too early that it's you, Burnham, come on. And then the plan was so intricately laid out, and there was no other hitches. I was like, well, what can it be? But then when the far shot came out and we saw someone matching Burnham's skin color come out, I was like, well, yeah, maybe it's just, they went longer hair in the future. She's like, grew it out and was going to a punk rock phase. But then that mom moment at first was like, huh? Then, oh, because in season 1 it was always like this whole, she was disgraced and she had to work her way up, or her career.
Yeah.
And we're learning more about her family, but you don't see her have a connection with her Vulcan mom, right? So it's like that's like the last thing that as her frontier has been explored, her human family, and that could be totally open there. So I was like on board.
Right, and then my first thought was like, oh, is Dad alive too?
Right.
Because we just don't know at this point. But considering that the Red Angel turned out to be Burnham's mother, their plan to let her suffocate until the Red Angel showed up was probably not the most prudent one to do. That was not the best course of action.
you don't think so? Because
she could have died and came very close to it. What I was going to ask you about, Flobo, on this show, people are not good at following orders.
Yeah.
Spock, pointing phasers at, I mean, technically he's not a member of the Discovery crew, but, he's pointing members at the crew.
Sure.
And just like, no, can't do it. And, Pike's like, that's an order. Yeah, sorry, bro. Can't do it.
Right.
Not gonna do it.
Yeah.
What did you think in about?
Yeah, that's kind of a thing that kind of always takes me out the show a bit sometimes, because it seems that everyone can tell their captain, when I get around to it. I was under the impression it has a little bit more of a structure to it. It seems that other versions of Star Trek are like that. But at the same point in time, Spock had a gun, right? So a guy who has no emotion with a gun is like, I'll do whatever the heck you want. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, ultimately, they did get the Red Angel to show up, so he was right, but it doesn't change the fact, and, maybe when the dust clears, Pike and Spock are maybe going to have some words about that. What did you think, Frank, of Spock just flagrant disregard for authority?
Well, I mean, I think it was necessary because we already saw Pike was already against this it went against everything he ever believes in when he pledged his oath to Starfleet or the Federation. So I felt like everybody was going to pull out just a little too soon. And so it needed to be to the brink of death or even at least the beginning stages of death for this plan to really come to fruition. And I felt like everybody else was going to lean a little more cautiously. And so Spock was there. It's like, no, we got to go all in on this. So I can understand him going against it. And I guess, it's, the results will stand in for Spock. So it's like, all right, yeah, it worked. So we'll let it slide, buddy.
We're here in the chat. Steph Tressfreak asks, what's going to happen to Spock for disobeying orders? Do you think any repercussions are going to happen because of that, or just like
I mean,
last week was crazy.
We know Spock spends a long time in Starfleet after this, and
enough,
we have no reason to assume anything happens to him here.
He might be grounded for a week.
Yeah,
no privileges.
He might have to write on the blackboard 500 times like Bart Simpson. So.
I am curious about the Red Angel though, because as they kind of deduce that the times that she's appeared without the signal, it's been in times when Burnham has needed help, whether it's going to be as a child, as on that asteroid at the beginning of the season, or what they want to set up in this. So at the asteroid, she shows up right there in front of her to kind of give her that motivation. But interesting and here she shows up right there in front of her to save her when she's suffocated. But as a child, she shows up to Spock to go and tell her parents, oh yeah, go out here and save her, as opposed to just going to where Burnham is. She's done that the other two times.
Right. I mean, maybe that's something that they'll explain, that just the way she travels, maybe she can't actually, touch someone, I mean, although she seems to, be there in the present right now. But it's a good question. And, yeah, I'd like to see what they have to do about it. One of the things that they talked about with time travel, I'm glad that they went back in on. Early in the episode, they just in passing were like, well, you just need a time crystal, and then blah, 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 blah. I'm like, whoa. Time crystal. So that's just the thing. We're just going to, so all of a sudden in Star Trek, we have infinity stones, is basically what you're saying. Right. Is like, yeah, we just need a time crystal. And then at least there was more well, let's explain the time crystal, and this is how we got it. And I was like, all right, the fact that they didn't expect us to just, look, you got to swallow a lot of technical explanations on, any science fiction. But in Star Trek in particular, they always take the time to well, here's why our BS science makes sense. And we're going to walk you through it. Right. And we're just supposed to accept time crystal at face value. So I'm glad that they at least tried to point out, well, yeah, this isn't really something that comes along very often. What did you think of the science behind the time crystal, Frank?
It was I felt like not as thought through, even for Star Trek, even though it's pseudoscience and techno mumble jumble, as they like to say, and a lot of the Star Trek stuff, especially for Next Generation. I still felt like it was like, hey, we'll call it a time crystal. That's enough. That should be the explanation you need. But it's like, we've never heard of this ever before.
Yeah.
And you're just dropping this in now. It's like, I feel like I need a little bit more. If somebody said we chipped a bit off of the Guardian of Forever, then I'd be like, all right, I can buy that as a source.
But they haven't seen the Guardian of Forever yet.
But it just is. But you at least know it's all right. It's something that I have.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, but you would at least give it, give it a reason.
Yeah.
And I mean, at some point they're going to figure out all you got to do is slingshot around the sun to go back in time.
That's right.
So once they figure that out, time crystal, schmime crystal. I mean, the fact that they do always over-explain all this stuff, sometimes it's just easier to the classic incarnation of Doctor Who, where it was always just reverse the polarity. Okay, great, I'm going to do that, and you just it's fine.
Yeah.
Let's just go back to the story. Sure. But what did you think, Flobo? Are you on Craigslist right now looking for time crystals?
You know what? Watching it didn't really bother me that much, but the chat actually has weighed in. Jude and Diggs, as well said, Muddy.
That's somebody who hates you now because you can't read their name.
Oh, sorry, Diggs. Diggs. Mud had a time crystal last season. when they were in the time loop episode. So I assume
Yes,
that
you're
was,
absolutely right.
So,
There you go.
So we were supposed to already have taken it at face value.
Yeah, it
So-
wasn't like they said Chaos Emerald or something like that. It was definitely a thing
Wait
that...
a minute, a Chaos Emerald?
Yeah,
That's
Sonic
a
the
great
Hedgehog.
idea.
Yeah, for sure. It didn't bother me only because I was still trying to understand Leland's motivation, so I was willing to put that on a shelf to understand how he was involved. Which, sidebar, Leland is like the least effective captain I've ever seen. He's been manipulated, he's been played, he's been stabbed in the eye. Like, what is this guy doing? So it didn't really bother me as much because I really wanted to see how he was involved with the parents of Michael's death.
It's a great observation, Flobo, and to put it in Star Trek context, who do you think is less effective, Frank? Is it Captain Leland or the captain of the Enterprise B?
Oh man, it's not ready today. Be ready next Thursday or whatever. Yeah.
That didn't really make it out of space
Yeah.
dock, so I'm gonna and remember he also killed James T. Kirk indirectly.
That's true.
So
I will at least with I think it's Harrison, right? No, I can't remember.
I think that is his name.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember it.
Good old
yeah.
Alan Ruck. But in
Yeah,
his defense,
yeah, exactly. I knew it was Captain Cameron from Ferris
Yes.
Bueller's Day Off. Okay.
he at least had a novel that took place after the events of Generations, to say like how he's been working hard to overcome the stigma that everybody has about him for you got to kill Captain Kirk.
Yeah.
So I feel like at least his characters had a chance to be kind of redeemed even in the novel form, as opposed to Leland, who's just been just shown it as a very poor choice.
I feel like before the end, and I guess technically this is a prediction, but just for me, I think before the end of the season, Leland will do one thing that is redeeming, but he will certainly die.
Do you think he's not dead with that the double shot to the eyes? I feel like that kills him.
Well, I had that thought, but then I was like, it's such a specific thing to have done that and it was weird because the thing, whatever that device was,
Right.
it like repeated back what he said.
Recorded his voice patterns.
Yeah. So I'll be interested to see what it did to him, but I expect him to not be dead yet. But I know I had that thought when we were watching it. And I was just like, it was such an unusual turn of events that my expectation is that he's not dead. And since we're talking about this, Flobo, what do you think?
Well, I thought he was, but now when I'm listening to you explain it, like, what else could it be? Like, so he's now blind, or someone has taken his
Look, he could
took his face pattern.
he could have a Nick Fury eye patch. I mean, that's all we really need.
It's a flirkin. All right.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, let us know in the chat what you think. Is he dead? Because if he's not, he will be soon, because obviously all signs are pointing to Giorgio, obviously in the lead role as the captain of the Section 31 TV show. Let's talk about someone who was very entertaining in this episode, and it was indeed our friend Philippa Giorgio, Emperor Giorgio. I found her to be very entertaining, especially when she is there with Stamets and Colbert comes in, and what she referred to as the delicious male tension. And, Colbert's like, he's gay. And she goes into the whole explanation. Don't be so binary. The Stamets I knew is pansexual. And I jotted this down because it made me laugh. That they engaged in DEF CON level fun together.
I already done too. It's awesome.
Yeah, and I think just watching Tilly's reaction to all of it summed up with, what just happened? I thought that scene was fun. An episode that maybe didn't have a lot of room to breathe. I felt like they found some time to remind us sort of, that this is not someone of this universe. What did you think, Flobo?
I think after watching that scene and the scene with Colbert and the Admiral, and then the scene where Colbert tries to make amends with Stamets, he's like, not now, that maybe this is some sort of manipulative play to separate the two, Colbert from Stamets, to recruit one of them to Section 31. I felt that it was way too calculated for JoJo just to do that for fun and walk away, because she does everything deliberately. She even eats apples deliberately.
Yeah, that's true. Well, and we also saw, her. They had a reaction shot from her when Stamets says, "Not now, maybe not ever."
Right.
So what do you think of Giorgio in this episode, Flobo? I just asked you, Frank. Both your names start with F. Also, you guys look the same. So.
Oh, totally.
There you go. There you go. Please hear more from Flobo. but go ahead.
Name tags.
It was for, and I guess with Giorgio, you never know if she still has a hidden agenda. I guess
Yeah.
you always just want to assume that is.
Oh,
the
you'd be
case.
wise to assume she always has a hidden agenda.
But it felt like this time, we actually just see some which seems like some genuine concern towards Burnham, as opposed to I'm not doing it playing an angle, but I'm actually genuinely concerned in you as an individual. It came across as a little bit more balanced out, so we're not just seeing a completely mirror universe kind of archetype,
Yeah.
but we're seeing somebody that has been at least somewhat humanized by being over here in the Terran universe. So I'll be curious to see how it plays out.
And it was interesting when Burnham says, "You knew. Why didn't you tell me? That Leland was responsible for her parents being killed." I think her answer was oddly satisfying. It's like, it wasn't my story to tell. And then also, if I told you, you wouldn't have punched Leland in the face twice. So obviously, that's win-win for Giorgio that he gets punched.
True, but I can also understand from that point of view. It's like if she were to tell Burnham, would Burnham actually believe her? Because she would be immediately think you have some agenda you're trying to play. To hear it actually come from Leland himself, it gives it more credence to the story.
As entertaining as the exchange was with Stamets and Culber while Tilly looked on, I also, as she's going through talking about the Stamets in her universe, I also was like, is she lying about all of this, to one of her, to some end that will be revealed? Or is that true? And, we have no way to know at this point. So, I don't know that I can trust her, and I especially wouldn't trust her if I was an apple, as Flobo pointed out.
But what I will say is that I thought Culber, he looked great. He dressed to the nines with that little sports coat and the button-down shirt.
It's black now.
It was cool just to see a more contemporary look amidst all the sets and costumes for the Discovery. It's like, wow, all right, man. You can still look sharp. Even in the 22nd century. All right.
Disco Fashion Report. Hugh
I
Butler.
was
Oh
gonna
my
say,
gosh.
Yes. Obviously, Frank is the Mr. Blackwell of the 23rd century.
Well, because it's like so many times we watch this where they try to make the futuristic casual wear, whatever it may be. You're like, all right, it's a lot of collarless things and just kind
A
of.
perfect example is the bar that Bones is in Star Trek 3.
Yes.
Because it's a whole bar filled with people that are supposed to be in casual everyday wear. This is non-military, all that. And you're like, what is all this? It's I thought that that was good. Also, something that Flobo referenced earlier, I liked that they went back to the idea that Admiral Cornwall was a therapist, and it's like, obviously someone well suited to talk to Culber about a problem that she even says is like, there's nothing that we can compare this to. Did you feel that that scene helped us in a kind of our understanding where Culber's headspace is at, Flobo?
I think so. I think coming back from the fungal death, you don't really know what your new experiences are, and he's really trying to make his new life, his new body work for him. And I'm not sure if all the answers were there because their meeting got cut short, but I think that the fact that he's willing to identify what's different is the first step in his healing. And I think he would have gotten a lot farther had Stamets been more receptive and was like, what is it? Instead of being like, not now, I got things to do. I plan to save. So.
Yeah. So did you think that the writers' room, they were like, hey, wasn't Cornwall a therapist when we first met her? Let's do something with that. Did you feel like it was that kind of moment, Frank?
Well, but I don't know. It's like this is a scene that I don't know if we would have gotten really in first season Discovery.
Yeah, it's true.
And so I was like, all right, even it's a small scene, but I still think it's a welcome scene because anything that's going to flesh out the rest of these characters for me is always nice to have. Mm-hmm. And correction for me, I said the Enterprise B captain was Harrison. It's Harriman, John Harriman. There you go.
Well, you should turn in your tricorder.
Okay. See everybody, beam me out, guys.
How dare you?
Giant hook.
What's before we wrap up? What's going on in the chat? What's
The chat is amazing. I'll get shout out to Dig, Stress Free K, Beta Artemis. So basically, we all love Georgiou. I mean, she's tricky, she's dangerous, she's sassy, but she has her own means to the end. So shout out to that. So a little bit of a fashion report. Diggs asks, where was the wraparound tunic in reference to the futuristic fashion wears?
Yeah, there were a lot of I mean, that's when Kirk is in street clothes. I believe also in Star Trek 3, it is the wraparound tunic, and nobody wore that like Bill Shatner circa 1983.
Right. And I guess it was a welcome change to see some therapy action on Coral's side. So, yeah, shout out to the chat.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's different ways to get your therapy. There's that way, and then there's the way that Burnham gets therapy, which is to just take it out on on a dummy.
You know what I did like though? Jump back. There's one thing we haven't seen in the longest time, since I think even maybe Voyager. Maybe they did it on Enterprise. You'd have to say, but have everybody gathered around the conference room table, breaking down the problem.
That's a great observation. Every episode of Next Generation made time for that, and that is definitely a staple of Star Trek, and it is something that we haven't seen. Now, of course, it's all about like using the fancy screens and everything just to make it visually more engaging, but I'm certainly okay about that. So the final thing I wanted to bring up is we're a few episodes in of having Ethan Peck as Spock. And how do you feel, as someone that is relatively new to the Star Trek universe with Discovery, Flobo? How do you feel that Spock is fitting in with the existing cast? And also, I mean, Captain Pike, who is new this season, but he's really fit in with the crew.
Yeah, fitting in may not be the right phrase. I think that he has a chemistry, definitely, of being almost like the Greek chorus on the ship, saying how he feels and sometimes how we as the audience are feeling. And so it may come off as a little rough or kind of against the grain, but it's been a welcome addition, I thought. And it's always cool to see another person that can get a reaction out of Michael in a different way. It isn't like a challenging of her intelligence or as much as, hey, I love you, I care about you, let me show you my human side. So, I mean, overall, I think it was a welcome addition, for sure.
And how do you feel, Frank, watching, this incarnation of Spock, the third actor to play an adult Spock? Obviously, we've had some young Spock actors, but, so how do you feel he measures up to, Zachary Quinto and, of course, Leonard Nimoy?
I've been enjoying it. It's, it was tough last episode when he has his emotional outburst while playing three-dimensional chess. And I'm like, not that Spock doesn't ever have emotional outbursts. We've seen him do it before.
He had a two-dimensional outburst during three-dimensional chess. Yeah. So it was a little hard to
like that one.
There you go. But I felt like this one, I was like, all right, I'm enjoying him in this role. This episode, I didn't see anything that struck me as like, yeah, this guy's still not hitting it. So I think as he gets more time in the role, he's getting more secure in his performance and what he wants to do with it.
Yeah, and I like the human touches that we've seen. The actually bonding with Burnham, but then also, just basically, part of the bonding was saying that he would have liked to have seen her punch Leland. He's like, I forget exactly what he said, but he said something about like I would have found that moment satisfying.
Yes,
is what he said.
Or even when he's strapping in Burnham, and he's like, this would be the second time I'm accused of killing a Starfleet officer. I just like that was a nice way for Spock to give a joke.
Yeah, and then she's like, "You have a way with words." That was the other one. That was actually a great touch. I'm glad you called back to that. Well, we've seen a little bit of where this goes next week, and we only have 4 more episodes of Discovery. I can't believe that the season is this close to being over. And I don't quite know where it's going, but I'm looking forward to it. And in case anybody's curious, we have talked about on this show that it was renewed for a 3rd season. So
yeah,
hopefully we don't have to wait, like 14 months again for the next season. It seems like the behind the scenes turmoil is at least settled for right now. But I don't know. I think this isn't really prediction, but Flobo, what do you most want to see before the end of the season? What do you think would be satisfying, for you to kind of put a button on this 2nd season?
Oh, at some level, we have a closure to the loop of Michael Burnham's human family. If Dad's alive or dead, that's irrelevant to me. But we've seen her dedication to her job first, then her friends or her extended family, even with love in Ash's case, and now to see that other aspect of her family, of her life. And speaking of, before I forget, today's March 21st. It's Michael Burnham's birthday. Sonika Martin Green turns 34 today. Happy birthday. I don't know if you watch this show, but you should.
I mean, CBS All Access doesn't have an after show, so she should watch our show. I thought you meant, wait, like, how did he know? I thought you meant the character.
Yeah.
I'm like, how did you know what her birthday was? Was there like a file where it's like, and it's like, did he figure out what the star date was? Frank, before the end of the season, what would you most like to see?
I'm a sucker for time travel stuff. Mm-hmm. So I always just like some kind of satisfying resolution to that. Admittedly, when they just say temporal arms race, the shutters of Enterprise's temporal Cold War resonated through me. I was like, all right, maybe I don't need to see that. But I feel like what I want to see is, I guess, some kind of closure to the Spock-Burnham relationship and how we transition from Spock and Pike off the Discovery and make way for the third and hopefully final captain.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let us know, for those of you watching the archive version, what you most want to see for the end of the season. And, of course, any of your thoughts on this episode and, of course, what we had to say about it. But
of course.
Yeah, that's why I said of course. It's like, we're more interested in what you think of us. We get
that's
it.
Why I scroll
you
in.
all love Flobo. We get it, all right? And then we'll take that. We'll just assume that that's the case.
But I love
then
you
go
guys.
past that. Yeah, well, yeah.
Well, I don't have to love you guys.
True,
But
yeah.
I do. Yeah, well.
In any case, I was going to say we'll be back, but Flobo and Frank will be here next Thursday at 10 Pacific. So
we have the con?
Yes, you do have the con, and I'll have the conch shell. I wish I was going to be on a beach. It just sounded funny in my head. Anyway, Flobo, where do people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at FloboBoys, Instagram at Flobito, Flobito.com. Before I go, today's ABCD award, Above Beyond the Call of Duty, I got to give it to Michael. She did everything. She cried, she laughed, she fought. She was amazing.
Awesome. Hey, folks, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at HappyGoJackie, and we appreciate all your support that you're giving us. And we're just asking if you want to continue to help us create shows that you get to enjoy. Like us on Facebook, give us those 5 stars on iTunes, subscribe to the YouTube channel, give it a thumbs up while you're there, and stay in touch with us and keep the conversation going offline.
That's right, and thank you, Frank, for helping us be the ESPN of TV Talk.
Thank you, Christian.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Christian DMZ. I host several shows here at AfterBuzz, and earlier this week on Tuesday I did a special edition of the show I do called Marvel TV Weekly, where I spend the entire show interviewing great comic book writer Chris Claremont, best known for writing the X-Men for 17 years. We went really in depth on the character of Carol Danvers, whom you all know as Captain Marvel, so you can go ahead and look for that on the same channel as this. In any case,
dang, I'm envious.
You know.
And the Black Cast, right?
Well, I mean, I wasn't going to plug that, but thanks, Flobo. Yeah, you can find the Blackcast, BLADTCAST.com. That's all the time we have. But until next week, live long and prosper.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.